To Wild Pockets is pretty simple. There are two things you're going to need from the Wild Pocket site. First of all, if you go to the support section and drop down, there is a Art Exporters tab. If you go to the Art Exporters tab, there's a page that explains all of the exporters that are available for all of the exporters we support, which are 3ds Max, Maya, and Blender. For the demo I'm giving, you're going to need to download curl, which is a little network thing we use to export it, and you're also going to need to download the specific exporter for the version of 3ds Max you're using. So in this case, we're going to be using Max 2964-bit. Okay, so I'm going to full screen this. I'm going to make the time-honored teapot model. Ta-da! All right. So we'll imagine I had taken plenty of time to model this wonderful teapot and was excited to put it into Wild Pockets. All I need to get it into Wild Pockets is go to the Helpers tab, and underneath there, after you've installed the plugin, there will be an Exporters tab, and in there is the Wild Pockets exporter. I'm simply going to click on that, drop it into the scene, and I will see the Wild Pockets logo now in the scene, and this is a helper object that will organize everything I'm exporting to Wild Pockets. So if I go to the Modify tab, now that I have that clicked, you'll see I have a Wild Pockets exporter and a little dialog here. I'm going to go ahead and add this to be exported. So we'll say, got to sign in with my Wild Pockets user ID, which is Nikio, and I'm going to make a file name for it in my setup here. So I'm going to say, my special teapot. All right. And you can see I have the various selection options here. I can choose to export very specific meshes and select those meshes. I can decide to export the entire scene. And I can also set physical properties for it by default in the engine. So if I'm planning to use this with physics, with collision, I can say, this isn't going to be an 8 kilogram teapot, it's going to be a 300 kilogram teapot. And those settings will actually come through to the environment when you play with them. There's some other more technical details here. Usually you don't need to mess with these though. And if there's very specific cases, we have detailed on the site for when you would want to tweak these. Specific script classes, we're not going to worry about that right now. This is a very basic export of a model. We also support animations, but right now we're going to focus on the model. All right, so we have that set up. And as you see, when I click on this, I have my special teapot as a model. If I go back and edit it, you see here's still the name, and you can see that the name has been changed slightly. This is the actual file name when it is put in the system, but it's still that same my special teapot. It has just been appended with a special file name .geom, which is because it's a piece of geometry in our system, and it's underneath of my root user ID Nikio. Okay, so I'm going to save that, and all I need to get this exported now is click the export button. It's going to ask me for my password. All right, type that in, and we're going to get curl popping up, and it is actually exporting. So at this point, you can see that we've successfully exported the teapot to Wild Pockets. So if I go back to the Wild Pocket site and I log in, all right. Nope, not going to worry about that Internet Explorer. Okay, so now we're signing into the Wild Pocket site, and the file at this point has been packaged up, sent to the servers at Wild Pockets, and should now be available for us to use actually in the builder. Boy, that's being slow. Okay. Regardless of that export process, if I wanted to make some changes to this, say I wanted to make this a textured teapot model, the basic way to apply texture to this model is to, in the modifier panel, go up here, and there's a diffuse color slot. I would like to choose a bitmap, and you'll go find any image on your system you'd want to use for that. So let's go to like your default documents, pictures. Let's choose a good old Wild Pockets logo, and you can see you take that. Now I take this just like it was any other material in 3ds Max and apply it. And if I want to, I can click this to preview how that's actually going to look. Oh, it looks wonderful. So good. Okay. So now we're signed in the Wild Pocket site. Check in again. Go to the builder environment just like we did before. And build environment will open up here. And at this point I've only exported once, and we exported without a texture. So we can show you what that looks like. If you go to your library resource, you will see my special teapot.geom, which I can drag out. And whoa, it's giant. As you can see, max scale and default scene scale can be a little bit off, so you need to adjust for size if you're just starting out. But again, remember, I did not export with a texture on it. So let's go ahead and re-export this now that I've set this up for a texture, and do one more export with this. And that'll come through. Great, it's exported. To see my updated version of the model now that I've re-exported, the easiest thing to do would be, I'm going to close that. The easiest thing to do would be to actually refresh this builder environment. The reason is because this model got cached when I dragged it in. So if I re-drag it over, I'm not going to suddenly see it with a texture because it's going to use the version that is already locally available. So a really quick update, if I reload the builder and re-drag that model in, we'll show it hopefully with a texture on it now. Other advanced texture things we support normal maps and specularity maps for artists that are interested in those. And we also support custom collision volumes, so you can actually build collision volumes using gizmos in the Max environment, and those will come through. All right, so we'll pull that over one more time. Oh, not the texture. Textures will also upload with the models when they come across, so I drag that out, scroll out, and we have that awesome Wild Pockets logo teapot as custom exported. All right. So again, one more quick thing you can do. Say I wanted this to again be physics object. I'm going to need to apply some physics collisions to it. And you do that by going to, again, the same utilities drop down, choose atmospheric apparatus. In atmospheric apparatus, there's a few different shapes, box and sphere gizmo. A spherical gizmo, when you apply it to the object, will apply a spherical collision volume. A box gizmo will apply a box-shaped collision volume. So if I, didn't want to grab that one. So if I grab this spout shape here, wow, I turned out 180 degrees the wrong way. Okay, so I see I have a front spout here. So I'm gonna rotate this. There we go. Ooh, 3ds Max not being fun today. Okay, so I've got a spout and I've got a sphere for the main collision. Again, I'm going to export one more time. That will export through. And when I go back to the builder and refresh, I can pull this in and you will see it actually as a collision volume and will react with in physics the way I built the collision volume. Any questions? Yes, in the back. Curl is available directly from the Wild Pockets website in the same spot that you get the exporters. So if you go to support, it's being pokey today. Let me refresh this page. If you go to support, underneath support tab, there is an art exporters link, and in the art exporters link there is support for all the downloading instructions. There's a tutorial video if you need to go over the details again. And that's generally how the export process works. All right, let me make sure one more time that this exported with physics collision. Okay, any other questions? Oh, one again. All right. I'm sorry, could you speak up just a little bit? Well, performance you're pretty much going to be the same on. The thing you're going to watch is texture size, because again, remember the resources are being streamed down to the client. So if I make every texture in my game, every model in my game has 3 textures, and every texture is 2048 by 2048, that's going to be a long download process to get that asset complete versus a model that has one texture that's 512 by 512. Like, that's a much smaller asset. Yes? Yes. We do support transparency. Transparency is actually handled by the texture as an alpha channel. So if you have a model and you set your texture to being actually there's a really good way to show this. If I go to this block right here and grab, I believe, I was looking at it earlier, the coin texture. This coin texture is actually a transparent PNG. So as you can see, when I applied that to this block, all the sections of this texture that did not have an alpha are now transparent. But you can see they are not back-faced. So that's an important thing too. But as you can see, this is all transparent now because it's an alpha PNG.